Hello and welcome to Technically Analytics. We're back today with another video on offensive disruption. And this video is a little bit different than the last one. Last video I covered what offensive disruption was and the basic stat line and basic theme of it and what it actually is trying to measure. And today I'm going to introduce you to a new stat called Offensive Disruption Plus, or OD Plus, which it sounds like something maybe a drug addict would do, but trust me, it's just a baseball stat. It doesn't really have anything to do with that. The naming is, open to change as I see it fit, or I guess. But anyway, yeah, this video will just be describing the formula, some examples of it, and then we'll go from there. And I'll have like a whole thing that I'm going to show you. I'll show you how to work the formula and all that. So yeah, offensive disruption plus, it's the same thing as offensive disruption. It's the same formula with a little bit of a tweak, things like park factor. And then I also weighed it and against the league, I came up with like a hypothetical league average, if you will, something that will work for now. I think it could use improvement, but at the same time, everything could be improved. So let's get into it. So here we are. We're at the formula. Let's start there. That's the simplest place to start. You can see the basic formula on screen here. Right here. It's the same thing that I described in my last video. So the formula for OD plus is pretty simple. It's the same formula, but the one difference I made was total bases is now weighted by park factor, which is I forgot to turn on my light. Oops. That's an oversight on my part. I'll cut this out maybe. Anyway, so we're gonna look over the park factor is basically a formula that they do on StatCast, and we'll look at that right now actually. So this is park factor for each individual park, and usually you use park factor in a stat when it's usually on the player's home part because that's where they get the most at bats. So whenever you use it in the formula, you want to use it in terms of their home park, because otherwise if you do it on like away parks, they're only playing at away parks maybe maximum 12 13 times if it's a division rival. So you always want to do home park because they get the most at bats there. And you can see the park factor goes from like a positive park factor to a negative park factor, which means essentially a hitter's park in the case of a positive park factor, or a pitcher's park in the case of a negative one. And then you have the middle, of course. And there's a range anywhere from 112 in the Rockies Coolers field because the air is light. There's no gravity isn't really a factor there. Air is thin. And then you have the Mariners, which is just gigantic. I've been to the Mariners Park. It's actually huge. So I'm not surprised by some of these numbers. In Citi Field, for example, I'm not surprised by that one either. But, some of these you're like, oh, is that really only just right on the dot average? And you're like, oh, yeah, all right. And then, some like Fenway Park, I'm not surprised. Great American Ballpark, what a bandbox, I'm kind of surprised the Phillies aren't higher here. Their park is pretty small, and terms of outfield range and all that. So that's park factor. And basically what I did here with park factor is I just took the total bases of the player, divided it by the park factor, which is here, their home stadium. We'll see this later. And then you times that by 100. So basically, if it's a hitter's park, the player will get a D boost, aka their total bases will be less than what they actually are. because the park factor will adjust for that. And then if the players get, if their park is a pitcher's park, then they'll get a boost of total bases, which will increase the number of total bases that they have. So this stat is the only one, total bases is the only one where I actually thought park factor was necessary, because the other stats like walks, hit by pitch, stolen bases, caught stealing, double plays, these are not affected by ballpark, and neither is plate appearances. They're not affected by ballpark factor. So you don't need to, there's no need to do it like that. Only total bases, because total bases is all the bases that you touch basically. So when you hit the ball, you go to first, that's 1 base. If you hit the ball, you go to second, that's 2 bases. If you hit the ball and you go to third, that's 3 bases. If you hit a home run, that's 4. And then it counts all those bases up until, and for the whole season, and that's how many bases you totally had the whole season. So it's kind of like an advanced stat of hits if you want to think about it, but it's not really. It's just counting bases. It's not that hard. So you do the normal, you do the total bases divided by park factor times by 100 normally outside of the equation. Then you do the rest, and you get a park adjusted offensive disruption, right? Score. And then you divide that number by another number, in which you take the player's offensive disruption score and the league average offensive disruption score, which my estimate is 457. I'll get into that. And then you times it by 100, and that's your OD plus. So let's get straight into OD plus basically and how it works. So this is my spreadsheet. I showed this last time. I made some modifications. The gold is just showing the players that I redid for park factor adjustment from my original list. There's some that I didn't do because this is just an example. It's just it's a proof of concept basically. OD plus isn't a real stat. Yeah, I'm working on making it real, and I need to get more players in my database and get better averages. But anyway, let's go down here to the league average one that I came up with. So I use a lot of AI for this actually, which is not very common for me, but I am really bad at math, so I really couldn't figure it out. But so anyway, I came up with help from an AI that okay, total bases, the average is going to be 69, and I went with a very conservative, very lowest estimate kind of total based on players that play, players that don't, because not every player is going to be a superstar 160 game starter, you know what I mean? So you can't go with the average starter. You have to go with all of the players. You have to consider every single player, the guys that get no playing time and the guys that get all the playing time. So we went with 69, which is very nice. Total bases. Based on balls, we went with 17. Again, for the same reason. Hit by pitches, 10. Stolen bases, 10. Caught stealing, 4. Double plays, 15. Plate appearances, 190. And again, these numbers seem like they're a little off. It's because of the fact that I had to account for low average players and all stuff like that. So and because you look at here, and these guys are all prime superstar starters, so of course their at bats are going to be way out, their play appearances are going to be way higher. So 190 does seem low, but it is what it is. And then the same formula, you add it up. There's a formula in Excel based on where my numbers are, and then basically it comes out to be 457. If you round out 458. League average. That's the league average OD offensive disruption, and this is the figure that I use in the formula here. That's what I put here, 458, and then you times it by 100, which is over here, and you can't see it because it's hidden. Yeah, it's right there. Times by 100. So then you have. So I added some new players as well because I wanted to test the different ballpark factors. I was I wonder how this will affect it, because here's the raw ones that I did, the ones that I did before without the park adjustment and without the league weight average. So I wanted to see what would happen if I adjusted it for park factor, some of the guys. So I did some new ones to account for the fact that Rockies guys were going to be really high, and then Mariners players are going to be really low. they're going to get a bigger boost, and they're going to get you know, it's going to depress their average a little bit because of how park factor works. So I was curious, like, all right, I'm going to add some new players. So I went with Brian Reynolds, 257, or no, sorry, 275 total bases. I don't remember what his original one is because I don't have it here, but he was. And the Pirates are, let's see, where are the Pirates? Oh yeah, they had a positive park factor, so it didn't increase that much, but he did increase a little bit, and he had a 486, and you can see here, actually, did I do, where's Brian Reynolds? Oh yeah, here it is, 106, so just above average, and that would check out because he is a 457 average for 486 score on the adjusted park factor one. So yeah, just above average. It works out perfectly. And then I was like, all right, I need to do something really low, like really on the pitching park side of it. So I picked Cal Raleigh, which Cal is sorry about that. Cal is he's a pretty good hitter usually, and I believe it increased his total bases by like, I want to say like 30 or so, because he's in the Mariners Park, which is very pitcher friendly. So his is 535 original score adjusted for park factor, and then his OD plus is 116, so 16 points above average. I should have wrote down what their originals were, because that's what the real, I guess we can see another one that I actually have here. So another good example would be actually the next one, Jarren Duran, right? His total bases adjusted park factor was 308, and his actual was 330. So you can see he lost almost 20 bases on just because he plays in a park like Fenway that's really good for park factor. And then that in turn decreased his score to 538 from, 559. So yeah, he lost almost 20 points just on the park factor, which you don't get without adjusting for it. And then league average wise, he's still above average, which I put him here, 117. So him and Cal Raleigh have almost the same offensive disruption score, and they play in totally different ballparks, but yet they're the same. So it's not like, and this is what makes this stat useful, because originally in my last video I was saying like, oh, this stat could be useful if you could adjust it for day-to-day stats and day-to-day things, and this actually does do that, and it makes it so you can see that all the players here that I have listed, they're all, they're different players with different stats, but some of them are very similar in score because the stats are similar, Take, for example, Maikel Garcia and Nolan Arenado, 90 for Arenado, 88 for Maikel Garcia. And you can see their originals were pretty similar, 412 and 416. And it kind of works out like perfectly, And the park factor for these guys, I don't know that it was like that crazily different, because let's see, Cardinals were where? I think Cardinals were average. Yeah, Cardinals were average. And Maikel, I think Kauffman Stadium is Pitchers Park. Where is it? Oh yeah, here. No, that's a Hitters Park. Sorry, Hitters Park. So yeah, so I mean, maybe Maikel got the benefit of the doubt with the park factor being a little bit better, but and he did actually. He went up by about, I think it was 6 runs or so, 6 bases. So yeah, his score did improve a little bit from what it was, but there's very similar players in terms of offensive disruptors. I mean, and then I looked at Manny Machado, for example, and I was saying in the last video how his thing was very low because of the double plays and the high amount of double plays and low-ish plate appearances. But his park factor didn't necessarily, it did decrease quite a bit. No, well, actually, his park factor increased his total bases, so it actually helped him a tad, and he was still, you know, a little bit above average. I think maybe the park factor is really helping him out more than some players, and this is the case with every stat. You're gonna find examples of them being helped or hurt by this, and you know, we just have to kind of, you can judge by their actual stats, you know, because you gotta remember, park factor, I mean, offensive disruption is basically any strategy or play by the offense that makes the defense react unpredictably or ineffective, thereby gaining an advantage. So, you know, the more you can do these things, the more you can accumulate some of these stats, the better off you are, and the less you could do the other ones that hurt you or that hurt your team is better. And this is always true in baseball, always has been true. I don't think anyone's disputing it. So yeah, this is offensive disruption plus. You can see this. You see this, you know, look at it if you want. Pause the video, study the numbers. You can even do it yourself. Like, here's the formula. It's not that hard to do. I'm terrible at math, and I was able to figure it out. So just do the park factor and the total bases. Do the rest of the formula. You get your original OD score, and then you take that original OD score, you divide it by the league average score of my estimate, or make up your own and send it to me on Twitter, and then, you know, and then now maybe I'll consider using it, and we'll see if it helps the numbers be more accurate. Times it by 100, and then you have OD plus. So thanks for watching. That's going to wrap up today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want more stats that I come up with, or that, you know, if you have an idea for a stat, let me know, and I'll maybe try to do a video on it. So yeah, baseball.